This is such a cool car. Navigation's trying to take me home, so I'm going to do one more run up the hill instead. The crazy thing is that with nearly 800 brake horsepower, it's still got a hell of a lot of traction. The way, we said it before, but the way these Ferraris managed to ride the bumps, I mean, it's just as well because Italy has some terrible roads, but witchcraft, really. And the crazy thing is that despite having this absolutely animalistic engine, you can still use it. All the electronics that they've given you help you out, but even when you turn everything off, take away the safety nets, it's still just such a fun car. The quick steering helps you out, and as much as I'm talking about this engine, I mean, the gearbox on this is just incredible. So they've shortened the downshift times, and they were pretty incredible before. Now, unbelievable. I mean, to talk about the engine without talking about the gearbox is like talking about Ginger without Fred or Beavis without Butthead. I think that covers all the cultural ends. Oh, this car's so much fun. I really want to just keep driving, but we've got to get this back to the factory. I'm going to be late as it is. I'm sorry, Ferrari. I really am. But we've done our best. How do you tear yourself away from something like this? It's a couple of days since we drove the 812 Superfast in Italy, and I've just about calmed down. As you might have been able to tell from that brief clip, it wasn't a usual launch. We had a very limited amount of time in the car, about 6 hours actually filming. So we thought we'd use that time to film a sort of a more intense film, I suppose, that you can see by clicking on a link below or above or somewhere around here. And that gives you hopefully an experience of sort of going through the various Manatino levels in the car and what it's like to drive. But whilst we were there, we thought, well, we'll do a review as well and record a bit of an interview when we get back here to fill in the gaps. So this is what this is. The 812 Superfast is amazing. I mean, I'll give you a few of the tech highlights. I can't take you through everything because that would take far too long. It takes about 2 hours, I know, because I sat through the presentation by Ferrari and involves graphs and all sorts of things. But highlights, that engine, amazing. Most powerful engine that they've ever put in a production road car, so ignoring things like LaFerrari. 800 horsepower, 789 brake horsepower at 8,500 RPM, 529 pounds-foot of torque. It is just bonkers. 6.5 litres, but I don't know how they make it feel so light and responsive in the way that it revs. It's amazing. They've got a direct injection system in there up to now 350 bar, which is the highest ever on a spark ignition engine. So we've seen those sort of numbers on diesels before, but this is the first time on a spark ignition, sort of a petrol engine, I suppose. And it's just insane. It revs to 8,900 RPM. It's bonkers, but utterly brilliant. The next thing I want to talk about is the steering, because that's probably the other big thing that people have heard about. So for the first time, this Ferrari has got an EPAS system, an electric power assisted system. Obviously they haven't necessarily worked out very well in the past for some people, and this has got some interesting things. So when you reach nearing the limit of grip of those massive 275 section front tyres, it will change the torque coming through the rack to let you know that you're reaching the limit. Equally, when you oversteer, it will reduce the torque and almost try to coax you into how you should be steering to correct the slide. That sounds terrible, frankly, as far as I'm concerned. So we've had things like the dynamic steer on Audis and Lamborghinis in the past, and they're just not very nice, to be honest. They don't feel natural at all. And I was very worried that this was going to be the same in the Ferrari. It's not. It just works. How they've done it, I don't know. I mean, I suppose Ferraris have always had quite light, very direct steering, so perhaps that makes it easier compared to, say, something like a Porsche, which is generally a slower rack and was obviously sort of wriggling with feel in sort of 997s. But yeah, you wouldn't know. and you can't feel these changes in torque at all. It feels completely natural, which is extraordinary, really. So well done, Ferrari. Listen to this, down this straight. Here we are, second gear out of here. 9,000 RPM. And then those downshifts, listen to it. A couple of facts just to interject about the gearbox. So the downshifts are now where you used to be able to fit 2 downshifts into a second, now you can fit 3 downshifts into 1 second. You can do that just by holding on the downshift paddle or trying to pull it as many times as you can in a second, which is probably more fun because they're fun things to use, those big paddles. Press the bumpy road button for the way back down. I feel so lucky to have been around when engines like this are at their peak. I don't know what's going to happen at Ferrari. I don't know if we're going to end up with, we might end up with naturally aspirated engines but with hybrid, but then even then you won't get, there'll be torque fill, so you won't get that just beautiful progressive feeling as it crescendos power and torque curves with the revs. No, if this is the last naturally aspirated V12 that Ferrari does in a series production car, then what a way to go out. I hope it isn't, obviously. Seriously, nobody does a gearbox better than Ferrari. For pure theatre, I mean, it can be anything other than Italian. I always think performance figures, really, they often seem irrelevant, certainly when you're behind the wheel. But for reference, top speed, 211 miles an hour, 0 to 62 miles an hour in 2.9 seconds, and 0 to 124 miles an hour in 7.9 seconds, which is frankly insane. Right, things that I don't like. Let's be objective about this. Brakes. Could be a little better, if I'm honest. Could be a little firmer towards the top of the pedal, but then it is a big car going very fast, so if you feel a little daunted by the stopping forces going into corners, well, it's not surprising. But yes, brake pedal perhaps could be just a smidgen more encouraging. Other than that, the name, I'm not a massive fan of the name. 812 sounds like a commuter train. And Superfast, I don't know. To me, that sounds, it should be Italian for a start, but I think that would probably be something like Super Veloce and Super Veloce. That's my poor attempt at Italian. But I suspect they haven't used SV or Super Veloce because they're still smarting about Lamborghini 50 odd years ago, and they haven't got over it yet. So they've decided to use Superfast instead. Cock a snoop at Lamborghini, leave them to it, put it into auto, which seems sacrilege, but it does prove, I think, that this car, we've driven it down from Maranello on roads in amongst traffic, slowly, down narrow roads, and it is usable, or as usable as an 800 brake horsepower supercar is ever going to be. It does seem to shrink around you, not just when you're going quickly, but even from the moment you get in, you've got these wonderful sort of almost high cheekbone arches out here, which it's sort of, short of sitting in a Dino or something which has those arches that you look out on, it makes the car very easy to place in the corners and around town. It's very welcoming like that, actually. The quick steering makes it easy to place, gives you confidence. It has that innate Ferrari feel that you don't get in any other car, that ability to make a seemingly big car just feel so light and agile as soon as you get into it. One thing that only really I got thinking about after I'd stepped out of the car was how does it compare to the F12, the car that it replaces? And the shorter gearing is probably what makes the biggest difference in terms of the way that it accelerates up the road. But it feels a tighter car, so we've got the addition of the rear wheel steer and the virtual short wheelbase, as they call it, and the whole car just feels more precise. There's still some squat and dive and roll in it, but that feels much better control than I remember in the F12. To be honest, they're both fantastic. But those downshifts as well, that's the other thing that's been a big leap on with the 812 Superfast. It's just a wonderful, wonderful car. I would love to own one. As I said in the film, if this is the high watermark, if this is the end for naturally aspirated V12 engines, then it's quite a way to go out.